Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video on Superman Lois Season 3. Today we're going to be doing my review and breakdown for episode 4. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future DCTV videos later this year. Okay guys, so Superman Lois is back with another episode and once again it was great. I would say this episode was another 9 out of 10. I could see nothing wrong with it. But a lot of stuff does go down, so we're going to break it all down in this video, so don't go anywhere. Stay with me throughout the entire video and you'll hear my thoughts on all the interesting twists and turns of the episode. So the episode starts off with a forest fire. Now, they don't actually disclose where this forest fire is, but you can presume it's somewhere in America. But you see Jordan and Clark are there. They're working together, which is nice to see after, you know, they've had a little bit of confrontation over the last couple of episodes in terms of Jordan going rogue by himself, heading off to Asia to actually save the day, but that was without his permission, his dad's permission. And so Clark, whilst doing this, is actually keeping tabs on Lois, and so Jordan sticks around to help put out the forest fire and save everyone that's around. But Clark goes back to Smallville because he has been listening in on Lois since she's revealed that she's got cancer. Lois isn't very pleased when he gets home because she tells him, "Don't listen in on me just because I'm sick." So that's how the episode starts. Then we lead into Lois and Clark basically having the day off, or they're trying to have the day off from investigating, and they're planning to watch TV shows. Meanwhile, Kyle finds out that Lana slapped Sarah and he's extremely mad and he wants to go and talk to Lana about it. And by the end of the episode, they actually facilitate trying to get things back to a more kind of normal state of things. That's because they have dinner in the diner, which actually coincides with something that Clark does, and I want to talk about that scene just a bit later. Okay, so the plasma blasters that we saw last episode that had kryptonite in it by one of the people that worked for Bruno Manheim, that actually caught the attention of John Henry Irons. He recognized the tech and it's similar to his own tech, and so he's wondering, is this maybe the John Henry from this Earth? He was the one that originally designed this tech that Bruno Manheim and his people are using. And so Clark then after this reveals that he knows about John Henry and the link between his self on this Earth and Bruno Manheim that John Digger warned about just at the end of last season to John Henry himself. So John Henry is not pleased that he's been kept in the dark about all of this and the fact that they actually went to see his sister. And Clark is very apologetic about keeping this as a secret, and he makes it clear that it was actually a good thing that they went to his sister because she was the one to encourage Lois to get tested, and obviously she then found out that she had stage 3 cancer. So in some ways, yes, they kind of betrayed John Henry by going behind his back and without telling him, but at the same time it actually had like some good consequences, even though there is bad consequences too, which we'll get into later in this video. And so John Henry reveals that he wants to go meet his sister from this Earth and actually talk to him and find out more about the John Henry of this Earth and the tech that he sold to Bruno Manheim. So whilst this is happening, Jonathan goes over to Candace's house just to get out of the house for a bit, and Candace isn't there, she's actually on a run. Jonathan is confronted by Candace's dad, who is once again like in last episode, and every time we've seen him, very kind of confrontative and thinking he's like some sort of big shot and that he's almost untouchable, and he actually punches Jonathan in the face, and this has big repercussions for this episode. And at that point I was just thinking to myself, wow, like this guy has some serious problems and I can't believe that he just did that to a kid. But anyway, Jordan gets forced to cut his hair by his granddad, which he's not very happy about. They have like a mini fight, and this is all after his granddad shows him that there is satellite photos of him flying around and his hair is very distinctive, and so that's why he wants him to get his hair cut. But Jordan's not very happy about this. Also at the same time, Lois and Clark fight about the way that she's treated now that she has cancer, and basically she doesn't want to be treated in a different way than she would normally be treated. She wants to be a mum, she wants to be a husband, she wants to be a reporter all at the same time. but obviously she has to focus on her health, but she doesn't want to throw any of that away, which I think is very much so fair enough. And so everything is revealed in the next scene as Jordan storms in saying that his grandpa wants to cut his hair, and Clark actually has to leave the DOD suddenly. But what happens before Clark leaves is Jonathan reveals that his truck got stolen, and he's about to reveal what happened to his face, because Lois spotted him walking into the house and he clearly got into a fight or got punched or something, but he is very tight-lipped about what exactly went on because he didn't want to reveal or get his mum too much involved in this. But this leads to a later scene when Lois pulls up to Candace's dad's house to confront him. And at this point, the boys know this is a bad idea, and we as viewers are like, uh-oh, like we know this guy is kind of unhinged and he is probably the type of person to maybe carry a weapon around, and it turns out that is the truth because he actually flashes his gun and threatens Lois with his gun in front of the kids, and he's an absolute lunatic. That's all I can say at this point. I was just shocked to see he would go this far, and obviously he has nothing to fear right now. He thinks he's the big man, and Lois is the one that has confronted him, and he thinks he still has all the power, but he doesn't know what's about to happen next. But meanwhile, we have this story with Bruno Mannheim and what they're doing in terms of Clark's blood. And so Clark, as I said, goes to the DOD, and the DOD reveals, or specifically General Lane reveals, that apparently the blood was taken and synthesized from the blood that they stored in the DOD. So there you have it. It's not the actual blood. They got it from like a drop of his blood and they synthesized it and they kind of created more, is essentially what they're getting at. And so this means that the blood that they've been using is potentially corrupted and not exactly the same as Clark's blood. So there is always the chance that if they're creating clones like we theorized about at the end of last episode, or using this blood just in experiments, it's very possible that things could go wrong. And yes, it could give people powers if their blood type is changed and it's a mix of Kryptonian but also a mix of human, because obviously you can't get rid of everyone's blood. So I have a feeling that things are going to go very wrong because it's not actually just his blood, it's synthesized, and you know something's going to go wrong. And so somehow Bruno Mannheim got his hands on this blood, and it's at this point that Superman basically tortures the rest of them that are still at the DOD just to make sure nothing like this ever happens again, so no one can weaponize his blood and use it against them, because obviously Superman on this earth in the Superverse is the most powerful being and the most powerful superhero, and people have big rivalries with him and would do anything to have the same powers. Just look at Bruno or look at Lex Luthor and the experiments that Bruno has been doing. You can clearly see he's up to something and he wants to give powers to people, but we don't know his full plan as of right now. But John Henry goes to meet with his sister from this earth, and it's in the middle of the open, and instantly, I don't know about you guys, but red flags popped up. I was like, why would you do this in the open? You know that Bruno probably knows about him, so why risk this? And it's like literally out in the open, and so this exposes his sister from this earth, and so he tries to get answers as to his doppelganger's death and his links to Bruno Mannheim. She, again, as we heard in the previous episode, reveals that he was distant and paranoid after coming back from military service. He came back, he started selling tech. She didn't want to believe it, but when confronted, he revealed that yes, he was actually making this tech and selling it to Bruno and Lex and everyone. And then 6 months later, he turned out to be murdered, and all theories are leading towards it's Bruno Mannheim who ordered the hit. And I think we're going to get more into this as we go on, but Bruno's guys pick up John Henry right after his sister from this earth leaves, and so you're thinking, oh crap, what's going to happen next now that they know he's here? And we know that Bruno was probably listening in. We saw in the last episode or the episode before how good his tech is. Like, he can literally spot Superman in the city and figure out if he's listening in or not. He's got eyes and ears everywhere. So Bruno's guys bring John Henry into his home, and Bruno has this long conversation with him, basically revealing that he knows he is still. He has photos and he noticed that this other superhero was flying around and helping Superman for a while, but he didn't really pay too much attention to it. But now that he's looking at it and he knows that another version of John Henry is out there, he knows that he is still, and he knows that this is his tech. Obviously, he's using the John Henry of this Earth's past tech when he was still alive, and I guess they've just continued to use his designs and adapt them in new ways. And also the fact that John Henry of this world always wanted to be a hero, and that is potentially what led to his death. Maybe he did something to protect his family. Seems like that is a strong theme going on here. And so it's just after that that Bruno reveals that he has his sister from this Earth locked up and strapped up with explosives in some sort of van. Now, John Henry at this moment has a choice to make. Does he listen to Bruno and abide to what he's saying and let the fate of his sister from this Earth be decided by a potential madman who is willing to do absolutely anything to get his way, including strapping someone up with explosives? No, he actually tells Bruno Manheim to go to hell, flies out of that window and saves her by tracking her down, by tracking that tech, and figures out how to actually disarm it, because it's a piece of tech that he actually recognized, because it's similar to what he's made in the past. But obviously this is used in a different way in order to blow up and be used as an explosive. And so after this, after he's saved his sister from this Earth, he goes back to Bruno Manheim, flies in, shreds through his window, and confronts Bruno in his suit. That was great. I loved John Henry in this episode. The story is super interesting. I can't wait to see the way that they take this story, this rivalry that is brewing between Steel and Bruno Manheim. And so let's go back to Smallville as Lois collapses and Clark returns home, and he finds out that Candace's dad was the one to actually punch Jonathan in the face and confront Lois and threaten her with a gun. And so he goes to the diner as he, I guess, uses his x-ray vision to find out where in the city he is, and he goes to that diner, he walks in and he confronts Candace's dad. He rips the shit out of him and humiliates him in public. So Candace's dad tries to have a fight with him, saying that he's not going anywhere with him, and obviously at this point he still feels like he has the power, but it's when he gets up and he actually tries to push Clark back. Clark doesn't move an inch, he doesn't move a muscle, and that totally shocks him, and Clark shows him what's what. And this was just such a satisfying scene, because Candace's dad, no offense to Candace, and we see that in this episode, it's not her fault, is simply a piece of shit. And it's quite clear to see that he needed something like this to happen in order to even get the idea of changing his ways. And so Clark does this in front of the Langs, which was kind of crazy that they were there, and Kyle was kind of impressed by the way that Clark handled it. But Clark basically is like, don't mess with my family again or else. I wonder when Candace's dad's gonna come back, and if he's gonna be changed, or if this is gonna come back to bite him in the butt if he actually comes and confronts Clark. So shortly after this, Clark and Lois talk with the boys and Candace, and Candace is obviously very apologetic about everything, but they understand Candace. Like, she's been put in a bad position where literally the only people she has in her life is her dad, and obviously she knows he's not a good person, but it's literally all she has. But then Lois is like, no, but you have us as well, and you can stay here for as long as you need. And Clark listens in to her dad, who has skipped town already, which is kind of crazy. That's how much Clark scared him. But just before the end of the episode, we go to Jordan, who is back with his granddad, with General Lane. They go back to the barbershop to cut his hair, but they actually don't get his hair cut in the end, because it turns out he figured out another way in order to keep his identity secret and safe from the world. And so General Lane gives him his very own super suit. Now, this is exciting. This is our first Superboy costume. Yes, it doesn't look like a traditional Superboy costume, but it's all black. He is going to be wearing fighter pilot goggles, which is a neat touch. It's obviously a very year one Superboy type outfit, but I think it's going to be cool, and I look forward to actually seeing this outfit on screen and actually in action. So I wonder if it's going to have a House of L symbol. As far as I saw from the shots in the episode, it didn't look like it did, but that would obviously be an upgrade for the future. Maybe he'll get a cape. I don't know if this includes a cape or not, but that would be pretty cool too. And so the ending of the episode, we have Bruno finding out that Lois has signed up for his very public hospital, which is very out there, and Lois and Clark basically come up with this idea that in order to get to Bruno, they must go through his hospital, because that is the way that Lois has figured out that maybe they can get to him finally. And so Lois obviously is putting herself on the line, but she figures this hospital is very public, they can't do anything to her. And so Bruno also realizes this, and that it's a play. It's not just that she's checked into the hospital that happens to be owned by Bruno Manheim. Clearly Lois is smart enough to know this is owned by Bruno, and so Bruno says he's going to deal with Lois himself. So I wonder what's going to happen next episode. We'll have to wait and see, but that pretty much does it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you enjoyed the episode of Superman and Lois. It was such a great episode. It was great seeing Jordan get his superhero suit finally, seeing the confrontation between Bruno Manheim and John Henry Irons, plus Clark going after Candace's dad. That was a crazy scene. But yeah, for now, if you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. Really helps out the channel. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. And for now, you can click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.
I see red.